Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. I love the hats.
Thank you. Thank you. We're just fooling around today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just came back from money 2020, so in recovery mode.
I bet. I bet. Yeah, we quit doing that.
Yes. How many times can you say AI
Yeah, right?
in a 24-hour period?
Running around in circles. Yeah, 10,000 of your newest friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was a good show though.
Good show. It's definitely pretty pretty intense of an experience for us because for us it's one of our big events that we do every year, and we do dinners and events and meet 500 people. So it's
And
just
I
a lot of energy.
I
I meet
completely
about
understand.
500 people. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I get
know.
it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. We're super excited to have a conversation. We're light and easy, as you well know. But if you want to give a little just intro on yourself and a little bit about you guys, that would be really helpful to kind of orient the conversation.
Yeah, I'm Trisha. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Unit21. Unit21 provides anti-fraud and anti-money laundering software for financial services companies. We work with fintech companies like Chime. We work with payment companies like Intuit. And we work with crypto companies like crypto.com. And we work with banks like Sallie Mae. So really a wide range of companies. But the core offering that we provide is software to help them identify, investigate, and report bad actors.
Yep. Tough space. And, we see this topic come up a lot.
Yeah.
Embedded finance, fintech, that whole maze is definitely sort of the sponsor banking space seems to be that's where you're in the key driver's seat. And there's a lot of what do you call it? Hopscotch?
Yep.
Fintech to fintech, sort of the ACH jumping right around that gets really messy. So if you want, would you just kind of kick us off with, I mean, hey, a couple of dumb cowboys over here. Will you give us the 10,000 foot view of kind of what you see, what's changed, some of the key trends, just a couple of minutes on that kind of thing would be great.
Yeah. And so fraud and AML is something that's not new. As long as humans have existed, we've tried to defraud each other. And that's something, but back in the day, there would be this catch me if you can, like people would try to have a different appearance. And now with the explosion of fintech in the last 10 years, what happened was anyone can defraud any company from anywhere in the world. And that led to another level of scale of attacks. So what what we do is we said that the traditional approach of identifying fraud doesn't work. And the traditional approach of identifying fraud is to is to really look at the transaction a user is making and determining if that is fraudulent. So I have an ACH transaction, is that fraudulent? I have a wire transaction, is that fraudulent? And then we said that, okay, let's take a step back. Is that actually how the fraudster thinks? The fraudster doesn't think, okay, 9 a.m., I'm going to do an ACH fraud, 11
Mhm.
a.m., I'm going to do credit card fraud.
Mhm.
They're just trying to defraud you. They don't even know what these terms are. And so, what our main thesis as a company is instead of just looking at the transaction, look at the life cycle of the user activity. Look at the onboarding data, look at everything in between. Look at have they changed their password? Have they added an admin to the account? What is the action that they're taking? And that's really what the major thesis of the company is, that if you look at a holistic life cycle of the user and the actions that they're taking, and then combine that with transactional data, you're able to find fraud more effectively.
Well, this
And
is
so,
yeah, yeah. This is really good, guys. This is where I was hoping we were going to go today. Is the identification of the bad actor, and then the sharing of that information with other players. And there's 3 or 4 different people out there. I've talked to every one of them about their fraud consortium piece of this, and you guys have yours. And but I like this idea that we're trying to identify. Sorry if we can hear the little thunder.
We're finally getting
We
some
never get any
rain.
rain, so we got some rain. We're all like, yeah. Hopefully it's not coming through on the audio. But anyway, the idea that the actor himself, I've heard like talk to different people over time, like nobody copy and paste their name.
So that's what I was going to bring up, right?
Little
The
things
copy
like
and
that.
paste of your address and your name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just neat little things that smart people think of that your everyday Joe like me would never, consider. and being a specialist in your field, being able to identify things that just seem off. There's phone number is not a real phone number. Or this is that one little thing that you catch, and then you've identified a bad guy. But to share that information, back to the hopscotch idea,
Right.
What we keep hearing from everybody is a bad guy comes in and he just goes around from fintech to fintech to fintech, or bank to bank to bank to bank. The banks can go, look, we'll put him in the SARS system. And the fintech are like,
What?
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when we have the law changes and the things with 1033 and the expansion of all this, through Europe and coming to the US and all that,
Wild.
we better get in front of this thing rather than chase it, right?
Yep.
And that's where you can. So
Yeah.
this is so great because I've really got 100 questions, but let's start with your fraud consortium, as opposed to others. Maybe that's the best place to start. You tell me.
Yeah. So, fraud consortium, like you said, one of the most interesting characteristics about fraudsters is that they have no bias. They'll take money from whoever they can get. They'll go after any company and they'll attack them. And we see that all the time. We see that the same fraudsters showing up from company to company and trying to steal money from them. And we said, okay, there are a lot of fraud consortiums out there. We're not the first. I'd say the most successful one is one called Early Warning, which is the most successful bank consortium today. But they don't work with fintechs. You have to be a regulated financial institution to work with Early Warning.
You need to be one of the top 25.
Right.
Exactly.
Well,
Sorry.
It's ridiculous, right? Like the initiation fee itself is so much that it just doesn't make sense for a lot of companies to engage in that. So what we said is, okay, let's study what did different consortiums do well, what did they not do well? And we realized that there are three major problems. One is that there's a really high barrier to entry, like Early Warning. The second is people are really concerned about privacy and sending in PII data. They don't want to send in their name, address, date of birth, SSN for their end customers to a shared database that competitors can kind of tap into. And the third is that even if they were able to get past these hurdles, they did not find it that useful. They will get a score like 8 on 10, but an 8 on 10 for Chime may not be the same as an 8 on 10 for Bank of America. And so we said, okay, let's tackle all of these three problems. So we said, okay, for the barrier to entry, anyone can join. As long as you are enabling the movement of money, you can join the consortium. For the privacy preserving component, which I'd say is our biggest differentiator, is we said, okay, this is a really big issue, right? Like you have to send in PII and it's really sensitive PII. What other industry has this problem? And so we looked at healthcare, and healthcare has the same issue where if you're two hospitals, you have to share data about organ donation. And they have this privacy preserving mechanism to share that so that the data never gets leaked and it's a very secure privacy method. And we apply that to the financial services industry. So we're the only consortium that does not take in PII. And I'll talk about the ramifications of that in a second. And the third is we give information, instead of giving you a score like 8 on 10, we give you more granular outputs. So you can see that, okay, this individual has opened an account with 4 crypto exchanges. Maybe no one's marked them as a bad actor, but they've opened accounts with 4 crypto exchanges in the last day. That might be unusual behavior for me, or maybe I'm okay with that. And you can use that. But I really say the biggest difference is we don't take in PII, and every consortium takes in PII. And we've created a hashing mechanism that enables us to match users without our customers having to send in the PII. And because of this, we've seen really rapid adoption. The consortium's been live for about 9 months, and we have about 36 million users and work with some amazing companies in this already.
What do you have them send in if it's not the PII data?
Yeah, so it is a hash, which is irreversible. And so normally what the normal mechanism is that people will send let's say they send an SSN, and that SSN would be kept with Unit21, and Unit21 would have the key to encrypt it. And mostly it would be secure because, I have this key, but if a hacker can get access to my key, then they can decrypt all of those SSNs. What we did is we said, you basically do the hashing on your end and you give us a hash. And everyone has their own individual key. So even if someone was trying to break into the system, all they get is some hash, like 1, 2, 3, 4, some code. And
same
yeah.
risk profile they have today.
Hmm?
It's the same risk profile that they have today at their company. I like it.
Yeah, it's moving it on them instead of keeping it on us. And that's made a lot of people comfortable with sending in data because, consortium is only as effective as the amount of data you have. And a lot of consortiums start, but really never get off the ground. And people just don't want to send their PII to this shared database.
We touch a little bit on timing. It's a question I get a lot on this topic of the time value, right? So let's say if something is obviously not going to be real time or even near time, maybe it's a couple of days behind, right? And it's like everybody's head blows off. It's like, oh my gosh, it's 2 days to rob everybody, right? What do you think on, and I'm all over the place. I don't know. I mean, I think it really depends on the topic. And it certainly, if you were one of the companies, right, it would depend on what you were trying to do as to how important that time value is, right? But what do you think on that topic? It's always been perplexing for me.
Yeah, I mean, timing is really important. The question is on the liability. So with ACH, you have a couple of days that you can block the transaction or suspend it, and then you don't necessarily have the liability. Versus for real-time payment systems, the liability is still up in the air. Like, who was the liability for FedNow? No one knows. Even Zelle is very much up in the air.
Nobody knows.
Right.
I agree.
That was exactly
Yes.
right, too.
It's like real-time fraud.
Nobody really wants to talk about this, but it's like we're just running as fast as we can into the dark.
Yes, we are.
What could go
It is
wrong?
crazy. Like, it is. And yeah, I think, the real-time, so we launched a real-time monitoring product recently to block transactions in sub 250 millisecond latency for and enabling them to really do it on a all action basis instead of just transactions. So like you logged in and we want to block that, or you changed your password and we want to suspend this user. So we launched that, and to your point, it is relevant in some cases, it's not relevant in some cases. Where it's most relevant is, for example, card transactions. And but it may, and real-time payments, but may not be relevant throughout. So yeah, in my opinion, it depends on the liability and how much time the organization has to absorb themselves.
Is this the only thing you guys focus on, or do y'all have an array of different products and different services, or is it just 100% on fraud?
It's 100% on fraud and AML. We have really 4 main products. We have a transaction monitoring product to identify fraud or money laundering. We have a case management product where folks can review suspicious activity, and for the fraud operations or the AML operations teams. And then they can file SARs. We have the consortium, and then the fourth is we have a sponsor bank product where sponsor banks and fintechs can collaborate. Fintechs can escalate alerts and cases to sponsor banks, and sponsor banks can really manage the program through this product.
That's an interesting area because, I mean, from working with just about all of them over years, right? I mean, better part of a decade probably, with all sorts of different sponsor banks and watching this evolution. It's like nobody really cares about this topic until they get 5 programs live and 1 or 2 of them are big and they're like, right, we have our own network if we would think that way, right? And I think certainly the larger sponsor banks, it's just a major event that even if they could think of themselves as a real-time network just on their own programs, they could knock the heck out of it. And then all of a sudden the smaller sponsor banks are looking at it like, man, if I could get the fraud data from that guy, right? And all of his programs, right? And so you guys are able to kind of act as an intermediary and all that. It's really a positive, I think.
It's a dynamic problem that everybody seems to miss. It's not once you get big enough, it's going to be your problem. It's your problem today. It's your problem before you even start.
Have no way to impact it today.
Right. And there's going to be a leadership here that comes out of this. I mean, you guys are as good a spot as anybody else out there to take over the whole thing. And when everybody just incorporates this as part of being a sponsor bank and part of being a fintech, is to accept a program like this as part of it. This benefits everybody across the board. And I mean, if you just want to understand fundamentally what we're talking about, bankers, is that where would you be without a SAR today?
You
And
bet.
that's really where this industry is at. It doesn't have a standard of a SAR report.
When ultimately
Mhm.
fraud is got to be, I mean, you know better than I do, but if I had to take a stab at it, next to the cost of technology, fraud is probably the biggest dollar expenditure pain point that at the end of the day hurts the end consumer. I don't care if you're a banker, I don't care if you're a fintech, I don't care where you work in the industry. We're all trying to lower the price and democratize financial services for the end consumer. And
Mhm.
outside of tech costs and people costs, you'd have to say that fraud is probably the most painful point to getting to that end.
Yeah.
Right. So funny enough, Trisha, I think you actually have an ethical mission. You know, I mean, if you can take a real bite out of fraud, then you really do help democratize things out. I mean, you take companies that would otherwise struggle or not be profitable, and now they can exist, right? And so that
Yeah.
really extends things to the end user. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's like fraud is so important to tackle. To your point, the democratization of finance. I mean, fraud is such a big blocker for people to really think about, how can they operate their businesses, their banks. I think also fraud is such a big impact on consumer experience. Even if you don't hold a liability, we are seeing romance scams go up like crazy. Like every year, it's increasing by significantly. I think last year it was about $1.5 billion that Americans lost to romance scams. And
I got married, so I understand. Sorry, she got me. Sorry, she's gonna edit this. So mad at me.
That was great.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure we can edit that part for your partner. But yeah, it is. It's just so. Firstly, it's a really bad consumer experience that they're getting scammed. They're going to associate your bank with that consumer experience, and the second thing is it's just so sad. There's like the how much U.S. businesses and consumers have lost to fraud has gone from 2 billion in 2019 to 8 billion last year. Like, that's just insane. There are, real humans behind this. And all of this money that is being stolen is not for good uses. Like we've reported millions of dollars to terrorism financing to FinCEN, and we've reported like child pornography cases. This is such a big human impact. And so from a societal perspective, I think it's really important that we try to do our best to solve this problem.
It's a really good call out. Really, really good. It's look at that whole space, and I mean, I think about it. It shocks me where your head goes, because I think about similarities from the community bank side and bankers that I've been in, and I think about things like elder abuse cases. I think about there's a lot of like call it small business, but it's really ag, like farm and ranch. Picture the fourth generation older gentleman, somebody like my grandfather, right, that is being defrauded on things. I mean, hey, they got a call from somebody asking for help, and I mean, in his world, that's a nice and honorable thing to do.
Some of this is theft and some of this is just money laundering, but people that want to do money laundering are usually not in great businesses.
Right.
So, like you said, good call. End of the day, there's going to be a trust and a fluency, not a fluency of commerce that goes through with fintech and banks. And I think everybody in the BaaS business sees this perfectly. And whether it's embedded finance or whether it's fintech, okay, we can see this as brands or we can see this as companies. But at the end of all of this, there's a consumer out there going, hey, I want to do orange tomorrow. I want to do yellow, or whatever it is that they want to serve themselves with, and to make it easier. But if we don't do this in a trustworthy way, it's spinning your wheels for a hell of a lot of nothing. And there's a lot of bankers out there that feel that this is going to spin itself out of control because we're doing 1033, we're doing real-time payments.
It's a lot at one time.
And we haven't fundamentally solved the biggest elephant in the room, which is fraud. That's why we wanted to be on here today, and why we wanted to get this message out there that there's people working on it.
And so we can ask a question. Do you have any hope that we can solve this problem? is this going to spin out of control? I mean, people like you help and knock down the numbers and save the day, right? But is there any way to really like, is this going to get worse forever no matter what we do, or are we ever going to get things under control?
It's a really good question. So I do and I don't. So I do in that, I do think that the industry is starting to collaborate more. That's what we're seeing with the Fraud DAO, which is our consortium. I am also seeing people are becoming more data driven. And, they're not just looking at things from, is this transaction fraudulent, but am I seeing any breadcrumbs that the fraudster left?
Mm-hmm.
So there are mindset shifts that are happening that I think are great. Where I'm maybe a little less optimistic is fraudsters are some of the most creative entrepreneurs in the world. You put up a defense, they're going to try to get around it. And so it's a constant game of whack-a-mole. You can never get done with fraud. And people are going to try to defraud you. And it's important that as an industry, we go from the defensive to the offensive and try to more proactively think about fraud before it happens instead of waiting for it to become a problem.
Right. Do you feel, so I think about, I mean, I know you've lived all of it, obviously. You're like so old, you've seen everything. I've seen a lot too, No, I think about, remember the move on ACH to same day or next day, excuse me, right? I mean, I remember some impacts there. And then you think about cards and remember, we had signature and we had PIN, and then it was, hey, let's replace everything with chips, right? And it's like every turn is some trade-off between security and speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we, as an industry, try to do a good job of every time we implement more speed, we try and implement more control. But to your point, it feels like it's a losing battle. Every single time things get a little bit worse. And then to your point, which I think was great today, we're talking about open banking, which in my opinion is real-time conversions, right? What used to take us all, a year to do a digital user conversion. Let's do that, in a second and let it be user generated. But real-time data conversion and switching. And then at the same time, we're talking about real-time payments, right? In a lot of cases. And so you see the hesitancy from the bank side of let's be receivers, but not senders, to your point, liability, right? I'm terrified. I'll just say it. I have no idea how this is ever supposed to go down without being a fiasco of fraud. Am I crazy, or do you feel the same way?
I'm a little more. So I do think it is going to be really interesting. Like what we saw with Zelle, and the types of fraud was, not like a card stolen kind of thing. It was more scams and account takeovers, and scams has increased. It increased 2x from 2021 to 2022. And I think what's, with Chat GPT, what has happened is the sophistication of the scam is much better. I'm sure everyone's here has received a Nigerian prince email, and it's a scam. Like there's a spelling mistake, there's a punctuation error. This is that okay, what is this? But that's now a thing of the past. Like you can write fairly believable, sophisticated schemes to scam people, and that's what we're seeing.
I got one from myself the other day on payroll benefits from our company, and I'm like, I better let everybody know that wasn't me. Yeah,
it's crazy, and so I definitely think the scams is gonna get worse and perpetuated internationally as well. Where I am very optimistic is that I think for the first time, I'm seeing people think about fraud in a more proactive manner than a reactive manner. And really, they're starting to think of, okay, let's do more. What is the right analytical approach? What should the team be? Let's try to automate the manual work so people can be more creative and get in the mind of the fraudster. And that wasn't the case. 10 years ago, I think fraud was still a very paper pushing type of job. And now it's become a more creative, analytical job. So I'm quite optimistic that we'll at least be able to keep at pace with the fraudsters and hopefully beat them if we keep up with this.
Good call.
Yeah, I know that there's a balancing act here that's going on between new technology, speed of technologies, enabling consumer to make better decisions or simpler decisions at the
Mhm.
same time that we're trying to cut down on fraud.
Right.
These
Yeah.
things clash, I mean, like fire and water. And I don't know why the hell our government can't figure that out. It's time to slow down. I look at this, you talk about being an old guy. What do I see? Well, we took this horse and we beat the hell out of him until we killed him. Then we put it into a car. Then we race it around our track 400 laps until we blow the motor off of it. And this is what we do. And we take the rails and the systems that we have in banking to transmit money movement, whether that's ACH, networks, any way you want to look at this, even down to the digital level now,
Mhm.
to be able to move without having to touch core first. Okay, all of these different pieces that happen, we just beat the hell out of them until we stress the system to the point that it's not that hard for a fraudster to do the things that they do.
Right.
And I think it really takes people with a singular focus like you have to be able to step up and step into place and say, okay, we can slow this down.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. I'd say it's really exciting to be in this space, as much as it's sometimes really
Right.
horrible to see how very innocent people, like you said, your granddad, and like elder abuse it's so sad and it's on the rise. And again, with AI, there's voice simulation, so a grandparent will receive a call from their grandkid, and the grandkid's crying saying, I need $10,000, I'm kidnapped, and please don't tell mom, and they'll send that money, and it just is so sad. But I'm really hopeful that we will get to a better place. I'm curious for both of you, like you, I'm sure, get concerns all the time about real-time payments. What do both of you think about Fed now, and where it's going to be with respect to Fed now, adoption itself, and fraud?
I think a lot of things that we just all talk about, we talk about the topics rather than the use cases. And I think you actually early on kind of mentioned some of that, right? You said thinking about the transaction instead of the profile, right? And so I think to answer your question, I look at it as, are we talking about consumers or are we talking about business? Right? I mean, totally separate conversations of what's necessary and what's needed, And so I think that centricity is important. But overall, I mean, you mentioned early warning. I think back to, I remember conversations there when it was Clear Exchange a dozen years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I remember the first time I got the call, I'm like, you're going to do what? The big banks are going to get together and create a what? Oh, shit. Right. And I still feel that way. I think to your point, being able to democratize it across all banks, fintechs, end users, merchants, etc., anything that's ubiquitous to everybody is ethically in a good place, and therefore could and probably should succeed. Anything that is trying to grab a power vacuum and exclude people is just, if it's not evil, it will be, put it that way.
My 2 cents, we have politicians and power people at play that push an agenda without any concept of what the hell they're talking about or what they're doing. We're pushing speed. When nobody can sit back and say, we haven't learned a damn thing from SVB. That's a digital bank run. We haven't got a way to stop a digital bank run, and we're accelerating the process of how we can do this faster next time. You literally talked a minute ago about trying to take a digital movement from an account to a different conversion account, like you talked about. The speed of that increasing further jeopardizes
exponential.
All right. What have we done to solve problem number 1, digital bank run? Until we can talk to me about that, accelerating the speed of everything else is asinine.
Yeah, I agree.
Case in point, checkmate.
All right. Hey, I want to give you a minute or two final thoughts, anything we didn't cover, anything that's on your mind at all. And I'm sure you've got your money 2020 hangover, so we'll get you some slack.
I think fraud is a really big problem, and it's increasing. Scams is increasing. Check fraud, we see so much of it. But I really do think that we, as an industry, if we go to a more data-driven mindset, then we will be able to more effectively solve the problem. So I'm excited for, like, the shift is already happening, and it has been happening for the last few years, and I'm excited for it to continue.
Excellent. Well, I want to say thank you, because
Thank you.
You and those like you, it's a very short list of rock stars that are bringing this to be an industry topic. And that makes me hopeful. I mean, hey, we all gotta have the conversation, right?
Tip of
So
the spear, man. It's no better place to be.
keep it up and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
See you later.
Have a good day.
I have to go apologize to my wife. See you guys. Dude, hello. Can't go live.
No.
Now we're on air. Live and in your
Now we're disco.
yeah,
Okay.
in your living room.
I've been wanting to talk to these guys for a while.
That's because
Excited.
you're a nerd.
A little bit of a nerd.
I find there's not a lot of things in our business that anybody, like if you want to talk about those things, you probably need therapy. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk about APIs or fraud or right? Yeah. You're weird.
Well, you
And
notice
yet
that-
I find myself every Friday, Saturday night only talking about this shit.
right.
Yeah.
What's strange is, you sit around with other people and talking about all this stuff and it's just frightful. That's a good word, frightful. How
Mhm.
the depth or lack of with everybody. It's a complicated business.
Well, it's because you need a comprehensive knowledge to really be able to even go narrow on a topic. You know,
Right.
you need to know all sorts of shit about banking if you were just going to do like item processing, because 50 things touch it, you know?
Yeah.
That's why you have a really top heavy industry. Usually there's one or two people at every company that are brilliant, and everybody else has no idea what's going on, and those are sharp people. It's just a lot.
I think what we do is we take such depth of expertise on particular topics, but nobody's got a bow on all of it. you
It's
know?
hard.
And it leads to decisions like some of the ones we've seen recently.
I know.